Namaste, this is Samta Aunty. In class, you learned how to count from 1 to 4 in Hindi. Today, we're going to practice counting 1, 2, 3, and 4 so that you can review these numbers. First, let's review each number. 1 is ek, 2 is do, 3 is teen, and 4 is jar. Let's do it again. 1 is ek, 2, do, 3, teen, 4, jar. One more time. 1, ek, 2, do, 3, teen, 4, jar. Now, let's practice this number. What is 1 in Hindi? Ek. Now let's practice counting to 2 in Hindi. We start with ek and then do. 2 is do. So we had ek, do. Now let's practice counting to 3 in Hindi. Ek, do, and then teen. 3 is teen. So ek, do, teen. Now let's practice counting to 4. Ek, do, teen, jar. So 4 is jar, and we had ek, do, teen, jar. Now look at the picture. There is one Ganesh. How do we say 1 in Hindi? Is it ek, do, teen, or jar? 1 is ek. There is one ice cream truck. How do we say 1 in Hindi? Ek, do, teen, or jar? Ek. There is one Taj Mahal. How do we say 1 in Hindi? Ek, do, teen, or jar? Ek. There is one sari. How do we say 1 in Hindi again? Ek, do, teen, or jar? Ek. Now there are 2 peacocks. Peacock in Hindi is mor. And did you know that the mor is the national bird of India? Yep, it is. You can find lots of beautiful mor throughout India. And how do we say 2 in Hindi? Is it ek, do, teen, or jar? 2 is do. There are 2 uncles dancing. How do we say 2 in Hindi? Is it ek, do, teen, or jar? Do. There are 2 books. Book in Hindi is kitab. And how do we say 2 in Hindi? Is it ek, do, teen, or jar? Do. What was 2 again? Ek, do, teen, jar. Do. There are 3 Krishnas. How do we say 3 in Hindi? Ek, do, teen, or jar? Teen. There are 3 elves. What's 3? Ek, do, teen, jar. Teen. There are 3 Indian flags. What's 3? Ek, do, teen, jar. Teen. There are 3 gods. God in Hindi is Bhagwan. And this first one is Brahma, the creator of the universe. The second one is Vishnu, the protector of the universe. And the third one is Shiv. He's the god of change. Now, there are 3 gods, and how do we say 3 in Hindi? Is it ek, do, teen, or jar? Teen. What's 3 again? Ek, do, teen, jar. Teen. Okay, now there are 4 cupcakes. How do we say 4 in Hindi? Ek, do, teen, jar. Jar. There are 4 tigers. Tiger in Hindi is Bagh. And did you know the tiger is the national animal of India? There are lots of tigers throughout India. And how do we say 4 in Hindi? Ek, do, teen, char. Char. There are 4 Diwali diyas. What's 4 in Hindi? Ek, do, teen, char. Char. What was 4 again? Ek, do, teen, char. Char. How many narwhals are there? A narwhal is the whale that kind of looks like a unicorn. How many are there? Look at the picture. There's 1, right? And how do we say 1 in Hindi? Is it ek, do, teen, or char? 1 is ek. There are 4 dresses. How do we say 4 in Hindi? Ek, do, teen, char. Char. Let's count hot air balloons. And let's count them in Hindi. Ek, do, teen. There are 3 hot air balloons. And what does teen mean? 3. And what was 2 in Hindi again? Ek, do, teen, char. Do. How many gulabi balloons are there? Gulabi is pink. How many are there? There's 1, right? And how do we say 1 in Hindi? Ek, do, teen, char. Ek. And what was 4 again in Hindi? Ek, do, teen, char. Char. What was 1 again? We just did it. Ek, do, teen, char. Ek. Now we're going to count fish, machliyan. There are 2, so please count with me. Ek, do. There are do fish. And what's do in English? 2. What's 3 again in Hindi? Ek, do, teen, char. Teen. Now we're going to count princesses. Ek, do, teen, char. There are char princesses. And what is char in English? Char is 4. There are 2 mangoes. What's 2 in Hindi again? Ek, do, teen, char. Do. Let's count unicorns. Ek, do, teen, char. There are 4 unicorns. And what is char? 4. Let's review these numbers again. 1 is ek. 2 is do. 3 is teen. And 4 is char. Dhanyavad for joining me. Excellent work. And now you know how to count much more in Hindi. I'll see you in class.